Hello everyone, welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Give me that thumbs up. Let me know that you hear me loud and clear. And let's get ready for another fun episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what it takes to defend yourself out there in the streets. Okay, it's a question I get so much. It's one of the top questions I get all the time. So give me that thumbs up and let me get started. And let's get started talking about. All right, thank you, Jannah. Ahmad, thank you. Ahmad Zaitar, thank you very much. Jamal, thank you very much for that thumbs up. For me, the sounds a little bit weird, but I don't know. I think you guys hear me loud and clear. So fantastic. Okay, guys, listen up. Then one of the top questions I get all the time is how much training do I need to do, or what should I do to defend myself out there in the streets? Okay, so this is the one question I want to answer because I'm always telling people I'm going to answer it. I'm going to talk about it. This is the episode 88. Can you believe it? We're nearing the 100th episode. Episode 88. We're going to be talking about a very, very important topic that I know many of you out there are very interested in. Okay, so how much training do you need? Okay, well, I'll tell you the number one thing you need, in my opinion, is Muay Thai. If I had to choose one martial art, it would be Muay Thai. And I know a lot of you can be like, hey, coach, how could you not say Jiu-Jitsu fights end up on the ground? You're right, okay? But it's tough. It's a tough one between Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, okay? Because I'll tell you something. If you have a Jiu-Jitsu guy and a Muay Thai guy, and the Muay Thai guy never did any Jiu-Jitsu, never did any wrestling, he's not an MMA guy, that would make him an MMA guy. If he just does Muay Thai and he tangles with a Jiu-Jitsu guy and it's just a one-on-one fight, the Jiu-Jitsu guy is going to win. Okay, so in a sense, Jiu-Jitsu is the fundamental. You need to mix Jiu-Jitsu with wrestling. You need to mix Jiu-Jitsu with Muay Thai. You need to mix Jiu-Jitsu with boxing to make a style that beats Jiu-Jitsu. You can't just beat Jiu-Jitsu. There's no style that beats Jiu-Jitsu except a hybrid style. Okay, now we're talking about, if you had two individuals fight 100 times, the Jiu-Jitsu guy is going to beat the Muay Thai guy the vast majority of the time. Okay. But the thing is that you're not necessarily going to run into a Jiu-Jitsu guy in the street. Okay. So for me, I really think you guys need to do some striking. For those of you asking me, it's a trick question, really. You have to have both. You have to have some grappling and some striking. Okay. Because here's the thing why I don't put Jiu-Jitsu first, and I know it's the fundamental. I just said it's the fundamental. The only thing that beats Jiu-Jitsu is Jiu-Jitsu mixed with something else. Okay, but the reason why I didn't put it first is because I really believe that you need to learn to fight on your feet. Okay, because imagine in a street fight, you get into an altercation. You're not going to pull guard, right? You're not going to start pulling guard and pulling the guy on top of you and trying to armbar the guy. That would be a bit crazy. Why? Because, some bystander might be involved in the fight with you. We're talking about a fight in the street, okay? The guy might have a weapon on him. You could be putting yourself in a lot of danger by kind of like grabbing onto the guy and pulling him down to the floor. If you're not sure, you're only fighting with him, okay? So if I'm sure I'm only fighting with this one person, nobody else is going to get involved. Yes, I'll take him down and pull him down. But if I'm in a street fight and I'm not sure, I'm going to stay standing up, okay? And I'm going to throw strikes, okay? So for me, it's really a trick question. If I had to answer, you have to have, it should be MMA. You should do some striking and some grappling. But how much striking and how much grappling do you need? Well, I think it's a minimum. You need to have blue belt level in Jiu-Jitsu minimum. That's the bare minimum, okay? It's not a hard thing to get. It should take you a year or two, okay, to get a strong blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And Muay Thai, you should do at least 2 years of Muay Thai. At least 2 years. In my opinion, guys, the best cardio workout in the world, the greatest cardio workout in the world is the striking arts. Either a boxing workout, a Muay Thai workout, a Taekwondo workout, a karate workout. Work shadow, work the bag, work the mitts, whatever it is. That's the best fitness for cardio in the world. Running is great, but running gets really boring. Running can be hard on the knees, especially if you don't have proper technique when you run. It can be hard on the back. If I had to choose between running and bag intervals, bag work, I would choose bag work hands down. Why? Because you're getting your daily exercise, you're shedding fat, you're burning calories, you're getting in shape, but also you're learning a skill. You're learning a skill. Why would I run every single day for 40 minutes when I can hit the bag for 40 minutes? Well, guess what? Now I'm in shape. I'm actually in better shape than the runner. But also, I got a solid punch, a solid kick, a solid knee. I'm dangerous with my elbows. I've developed a skill. I didn't just run around and, taking laps. I built no skill. Everybody should do a striking workout for their cardio. Like, oh, you want to work your cardio? You want to shed fat? You want to get leaned up? Well, guess what? Work striking. Coach, I don't have a heavy bag. No problem. You can do shadow boxing with calisthenics. You can swing a kettlebell for 1 minute and shadow for 1 minute. Do that for 20 minutes straight. There's a workout for you. Do burpees for 1 minute, shadow boxing for 1 minute, non-stop for 15 minutes. That will be a killer exercise that will get you really, really lean. And you don't need any equipment whatsoever. All you need is a little space. You don't even need that much space. When I go in a hotel room, guys, and I'm trapped in my hotel room, there's no training, there's no gym, I have no access to, especially these days, I've been quarantined in the hotel rooms. That's exactly what I do. I do my shadow boxing workouts, I do my plyometrics, my body weight exercises, I do all that kind of stuff, and I get in really, really good shape. Now, it's not ideal. I'm saying for those of you who don't have access to a gym, all you would need is the most minimal amount of equipment and just shadow boxing. If you don't have a heavy bag, I prefer the heavy bag because it's just another level of workout. It helps you develop your power, your cardio at another level than shadow boxing. Of course, shadow boxing is good, but it doesn't have much intensity. If you shadow boxed every day for 2 years and you did jiu-jitsu every day for 2 years and you got into a street altercation, I would say that 95% of the time you're going to be okay. You might not, be able to just defend yourself easily, but you'll be able to defend yourself. You'll be highly effective. You'll be highly competent in how to defend yourself. And I highly like your odds of getting out on top. Now, with that said, this is what I think is the strict minimum requirement. Actually, you know what? If it was up to me, the school curriculum, the kids would go to school, they would learn wrestling, they would learn jiu-jitsu, they would learn striking. It would be mandatory, like math is mandatory, like like geography is mandatory, like history is mandatory. I would make self-defense mandatory. And it's, for me, in my opinion, super important, okay? Why is it super important? It's really important for the mind. If you look at all great civilizations, they were all based on wrestling / martial arts. All great civilizations, the Greeks, the Arabs, the Persians, the Asians did the martial arts. Of course, the Asians were great. They had phenomenal civilizations, but also they were great martial artists. They had great discipline. Why is martial arts so important? I'm going to tell you guys now a true story. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a true story. A friend of mine one time asked me to train his son. His son was 5 years old. Now, he brought his son to me for training, and I brought another little kid, and they both trained wrestling. Okay, I was going to teach them jiu-jitsu and wrestling and kickboxing and all that. I was making them do a very light kind of live drill. Okay, it was just like a goal-oriented drill where they have to kind of wrestle each other, but it's playful, it's very safe, it's very structured, it's very there's no bending of the joints or anything like that. When I train kids, especially children, I'm super careful with their health. Okay. And they started wrestling, and about a minute in, my friend's son started crying. And what does my son do? My friend, what does he do? He takes his son on the side, and he's like, "Son, it's okay if you don't want to do it. You don't have to." And he starts giving him hugs, and he starts telling him that if he doesn't feel right wrestling, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to do this. We can go home. And this student of mine that's talking to his son, doing this in front of me, is a very, very good friend of mine. This is a guy where me and our families hang out sometimes, and we know each other very well. I know him from before I have kids. And of course, I wouldn't say what I told him if I didn't know him well. Okay, if I didn't know him well, I wouldn't say that. But the fact that me and him are very, very close, I know he trusts me. I took my friend to the side, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing? Don't interfere with the practice. You're ruining this kid. You're traumatizing this kid. You're making this kid think that what he's doing is like really, really hard and dangerous and whatnot. You're scaring this kid. You're getting in this kid's mind." Now, let me tell you a little backstory about this child that I was training. Okay, this young child was about 5 years old, and he had problems. You know, his father had to take him to a psychologist. Now think about it. He's 5 years old, and his father had to take him to a psychologist because his son suffered from anxiety. He told me that his son always needs to know where what time it is, what's going to happen next. You know, okay, we're going to eat lunch. Okay, what's after lunch? Okay, we're going to go to the pool. What's after the pool? Who's going to be there? Like, he had to have so much control around their environment, around everything that's said or done. The kid was very, very scared all the time, and he had to always sleep with his parents, and he was a very, very insecure child. And that's why I prompted him. Oh, well, your son's insecure. He's scared. Get him wrestling. Get him wrestling. So he brought his son, and then I realized why his son, watching him interact with his father, I realized why this kid is so scared and so nervous and so insecure is because he's being trained. He's being conditioned to be scared of everything around him. So what happened? I kicked the father off the mat. I told him, look, you trust me? He's like, yeah, okay, leave your son with me. In 45 minutes, I'll give him back to you, and I promise you he's not going to have any injuries. Now, as the kids were training, I was kind of like barking orders, encouraging them, you know, praising them when they did something good, encouraging them when they did something bad, like to change course. And lo and behold, the kid had a very normal practice. You know, I've trained so many kids in my life. He was very normal. There was nothing wrong with him. And I had to talk with the father. I think the father got on the same page with me. And I told the father, the next practice is going to be on this day. When he comes in, just sit there. Let me handle everything. Don't give him a way out. You know, you are not interfering in practice. And if he hurts himself in practice, we're just going to, you know, let him walk it off. You know, by hurt, I mean, like, you know, kids bump their elbow or whatnot, you know, here and there. Not injury. Injury and hurt's two different things, right? I'm talking about if he gets a little bump or a bruise, we're just going to walk it off. Practice is going to continue. And fast forward 5 years, this child trained with me for about 7 years. Okay, after 5 years, he was such a now I had a large kids class. I would bring him in, and he would be the star on the mat. This young kid I'm talking about, this one kid that had all these difficulties, these psychological issues, these paranoias, insecurities, this trouble, you know, socializing. Why? He was always scared, not worried, doesn't trust nobody. This kid now walks on the mat and he's like the star of the kids class. He double legs everybody. He sprawls everybody. He knows how to sweep. He's incredible. He's tumbling. He's zigzagging on the mat. He's in the matrix. The kid's been training 5-6 years, and now he's like a star on the mat. And I remember his father looking at me. He's like, I can't believe. He said to me, I can't believe my son is so good. Like, he couldn't believe, in his mind, this is impossible. How could my son, because don't forget, they don't come from a line of wrestlers. His father never wrestled in his life. He's first starting training with me at a very mature age. So I started with the basics, building blocks, very soft training. So it blew his mind that his son had reached this level. And I realized, I was like, you could have took him to 100 psychologists. And he was taking his son to a psychologist because his son was like, extremely, extremely insecure. He had to know everything that's going to happen in the day. He had to know what happens in the morning, lunch, evening, afternoon, night. Like, he has to know all the details. Why? Insecurity. Now his son is completely normal. I would say very actually outgoing. He developed beautifully. Now he's a teenager now. I'm talking about a story that happened a long, long time ago. And actually, he's a young adult now. I think he's past his teens. What helped him? What encouraged him? Fitness, training, wrestling, combat sports, martial arts. What gave him confidence? What eliminated his insecurity? Was that we increased his competence. He became competent on the mat. Yeah, he got his head squeezed. He got choked out a few times. He got dominated. He got, put in tough positions, but he worked his way out. He always found his way out. And that gives you, when you find your way out, and then all of a sudden people are having a harder time to take you down, harder time to choke you, harder time to control you. And all of a sudden you're too much for everybody on the mat. Well, guess what? What happens to your personality? What happens to your instincts? What happens to your mindset? It grows, it evolves. As you increase competence, you increase confidence. And confidence is one of the greatest feelings in the world. That's why I believe that everybody should learn martial arts. Not because you're necessarily going to be the greatest ever. No, not everybody's going to be the GOAT. Not everybody's going to be in the top 1%. Not everybody's going to be in the, an elite wrestler. But your goal should be, in my opinion, and listen to me carefully, is that you should be too much for anybody. You don't have to be the best, but you should be too dangerous for anybody to tangle with you. Let me explain. Let's say, for instance, you're a purple belt, and I know you're a purple belt, you're well trained. If I want to take something you have, okay, not that I would, but if I want to take something you have, and I'm a black belt, it's still dangerous for me. Like, you're not an easy target. Like, I could have a bad day, or it might not be worth it for me to fight you to take what you have. Like, I have to really, 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 really want what you have. Because even a purple belt, even though a black belt can subdue a purple belt, he's also very dangerous. And if we're talking about a street fight, like, I have to think twice. There might be some harm, bodily harm happening to me. Even if I do subdue him, it might be too much of a price. Like, how badly do I want this thing from him? How badly? Like, and obviously this is a very, it's a very brutal way to think about the world. But I'm not saying you should think like that. I'm saying that having a purple belt or being competent is a great deterrent for people who want what you have, or for people who wanna maybe try to intimidate you or coerce you in a way. In my opinion, I personally wouldn't be happy with just being a blue belt. I think the goal should be black belt. I'm giving you guys the most minimum requirement. Okay, the most minimum requirement. Like, for me, my requirement for my kids is not to be pro, but to be black belts. Like, they have to get their black belt. If you're my son, if you're born in my family, you must become a black belt. That's a standard I have for my kids, and I want them to train their kids until they're black belts. I always tell my kids, now, when you're a black belt, you can do what you want. You want to be an architect, you want to be a pilot, you want to be whatever you want to be, go ahead. But minimum requirement is black belt. Why? Because, we're a family of black belts, and we have so many black belts in the family. Why shouldn't you? Like, you have every opportunity to be a black belt. It's harder for some people to get their blue belt than it is for us to get a black belt. Why? Because we're so surrounded. We're immersed in jiu-jitsu. And you start jiu-jitsu from young, and you have jiu-jitsu around you every day, all day. So of course you should be a black belt. Why not? Blue belt would be too low of a requirement for a family so embedded in martial arts. But you cannot, in my opinion, be an adult. If you're an adult, especially if you're a man, okay? And I don't want to hear anything about women. No, it's men especially. Don't kid yourself. If you're a man, listen carefully, okay? I'm your coach, and I'm talking to you here. If you're a man, you must, it's your duty, be able to defend yourself and your family and your friends. It's a duty. It's not a requirement. It's not a bonus. It's a must. It's mandatory. You must at least be a blue belt, and you must at least have 2 years of intense Muay Thai training. And this is the bare minimum. If you had less than this, I would say that you haven't fulfilled your duties as a father, a man. If you're a man in a relationship, you must have this at least minimum requirement. Minimum. Now, if you're asking me what I recommend purple belt. The minimum requirement, I think you shouldn't be able to sleep well at night until you're a blue belt. I don't think you should be able to sleep well at night unless you're a blue belt. Purple belt, you should be, you're very well covered, because you can be a world champion in MMA if you're just a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Of course, you'd have to have a striking background. You'd have to have really a black belt. You have to have a black belt in one of the arts, either wrestling or striking. But jiu-jitsu purple belts can, if they have world-class striking, can become world champion. Absolutely. A black belt is not necessary in jiu-jitsu, because there's a lot more to fighting than just jiu-jitsu. But that's why I always recommend. That is why I always recommend the striking arts for your morning aerobics. People wake up in the morning, they want to do some kind of fitness routine before they go to work. Some people do it in the evening. You must do for your cardiovascular, because we have to train our cardio and we have to train our muscles, right? You can't just train your muscles and you can't just train your cardio. You got to train both. You must use a striking art to develop your cardio. That's why I would never be able to train in a gym that only does jiu-jitsu. Like, I have to have a gym that does jiu-jitsu, and there has to be a bag garden in the gym that I train in. Okay, so whenever I travel and I call up a club, hey, can I come train? Can I come to your 7 o'clock class? And they say yes. I always ask, is there a bag garden? It has to be like an MMA gym. The reason why is because after grappling, I'm going to hit the bag. Why am I going to hit the bag? Because grappling is like where I build, I work my muscles, my musculature, of course, cardio as well. But then I have to hit the bag. Like I have to get my striking in. And if you do striking and grappling every day, okay, then your self-defense is set. So for those of you asking me how much self-defense you need, really, honestly, you should get your purple belt and do 5 years. That would make me comfortable. That would make me say, look, that guy, he could defend himself in almost any situation. If you're a blue belt with 2 years of Muay Thai training or / boxing training, then I would say, look, you're going to get out 95% of the time, but I'm still worried. Some guys are super athletic, super strong. Some guys have some training. People have seen MMA. Like they're not as naive as they were 10 years ago on the street. People will know how to like pummel, underhook, push you away. Like they get it. They know how to rear naked choke, even though they maybe have never really trained officially. The sport is more popular than you think. Okay, but as your duty, I think every single man in the world needs to be trained in martial arts. Why? I don't know. One day you're going to be laying down in bed and you're going to hear a strange sound, and you're going to be laying in bed next to your wife. Now, your wife is going to know that you're petrified and scared. Oh, somebody's trying to break in. Me and my kids, they ask me, Dad, what are you going to do if somebody breaks in that? Listen, they're kids. They're going to bed. Oh, we're scared of this. We're scared of that. I'm like, what are you scared of? Oh, maybe somebody's going to break in the house. I tell them, if somebody breaks into our house, I would be happy. And my kids are like, why? Because it's exercise. It's going to be an exercise. That guy ain't going to leave. And we're not going to call the police. He's going to call the police. I tell my kids. So then they go to bed. Oh, yeah, Dad's there. Oh, they feel so secure. And they go to bed and they're happy. That's how I make my kids feel super secure. Why? Because my kids, they know that I train all day, all night long. I tell them, don't worry. If somebody makes the mistake of choosing our house to break in, Ya Latif, what's going to happen to him? It's going to be just a little workout for me. And he's going to beg me to call the police. You're going to hear him crying and screaming, somebody call the police, get this guy off me. So my kids are like, oh, okay, we're going to sleep super comfortable tonight. We're going to sleep like a dream. Oh, well, we don't worry. Dad is there. And I tell them, I don't go to sleep till 1 a.m, so don't worry. And, my kids, I want to instill that in them, that they can defend themselves. Because you know what? Here's the truth. People, and you should never fight in the street. Like, I'm so against street fighting. I always tell people self-defense. Self-defense is not looking for a fight, okay? But you would act very differently. For those of you out there who train jiu-jitsu, because a lot of you guys watch my videos, train jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing. Try to imagine this. Imagine walking into a room full of people with your family, and maybe you see some rowdy group of kids, or like, not kids, like men, rowdy group of men that are troublesome. If you're well trained in martial arts, you're not so worried. Like, you can handle yourself. But imagine you have zero training and you feel vulnerable. Your kids are with you, your wife is with you. Like, if these guys get out of hand, what are we gonna do? Like, it's a very different experience when you go out into the world. I feel like when you are thoroughly trained, just life is a lot easier. Just day-to-day living, just day-to-day existence is a lot easier. You have that confidence, that self-esteem that comes with martial arts. And there's many other benefits of martial arts. In martial arts, I'll tell you, one of the top benefits of martial arts is socialization. Like, you look at a lot of people that have trouble with socializing. Like, I was reading Jordan Peterson's work, and he was talking about how most school shooters and though they're always the rejected kids. Nobody wants to socialize them. Nobody wants to get to know them. And why? Because they were probably not socialized when they were young. They're awkward for whatever reason. Maybe their parents were foreigners that didn't speak the language, so they didn't bring their kids to play dates. They didn't socialize their kids when they're young, and that kind of got them in a way, in a position where they don't know how to talk to people, and when they do, they come off bizarre. They have this problem. And it's amazing because martial arts also helps with that. You're rolling with people are choking you, you're choking them. There's a trust between us. I armbarred you. Did I do it? Was I gentle with your arm? Was I really mean with, like, was I trying to hurt you? Am I one of those guys? You start, your personality start to shine when you're on the mat. And you learn to be in somebody's face, and you learn to have people in your face, and you learn to get comfortable with not having your own personal space. People are breaking into your bubble when you're doing martial arts, and you develop that kind of comfort with having somebody in your face, or, having somebody inside your bubble. And of course, you're seeing these people on a regular basis. You're training with them on a regular basis. You're gonna make a lot of friends when you do jiu-jitsu and when you do martial arts. You're gonna get to know people. You're gonna get to. It's a hangout. Me, I'm always happy when I go to the gym. It's fun for me. I'm hanging out with the guys that I like, friends. We're laughing. We're joking. We're training. We're going through the routine. We're going through the workouts, and you're getting to know countless amount of people. It's a real, hotbed for socialization. It's a really easy way to meet people. Hey, you want to roll? Yeah, you shake hands, start rolling, and thanks for that. Nice armbar. How did you do it? If somebody sweeps you, it's really easy to strike up a conversation. Hey, you're sharing something in common. There's something to talk about that's very obvious. You tell the guy, hey, thanks for the round. I appreciate it. Thank you for rolling with me today. It's just really easy to socialize. Really easy to be part of a club, and 99% of clubs out there are going to be very friendly. Okay, the vast majority, I would say. Okay, guys, with that said, let me see what super chats I missed, because I know I missed a bunch. Let me go up and see here. This is from Mahmoud Shalabi. I've changed my gym 2 times due to studies, and I've been a white belt for almost 3 years with 1 stripe. Could I be doing something wrong? That's from Mahmoud Shalabi. Yeah, you know what, Mahmoud, I think you need to dedicate yourself and be consistent with your training. I always say it, consistency over intensity. How often are you going to the gym? Because what is the definition of a blue belt? The definition of blue belt is that you can beat somebody bigger and stronger that is untrained. If you can armbar or choke or sweep or dominate somebody that's bigger than you and who's untrained, you technically are a blue belt, whether they gave it to you or not. Okay, so I don't know if you have accomplished that already, because after 3 years of training, if I bring a new guy on the mat and he's 20 pounds heavier than you, you should be giving him a shellacking. Okay, if you're not giving him a shellacking, if you're not just easily toying with him, then 1, you're not consistent in your training, or 2, you're not learning the right techniques. Okay, maybe your instructor, I don't know who he is. Okay, but if he's a reputable instructor, then you're sure it's him. It's not him the problem, it's you. Have you been consistent? Have you been training on a regular basis? Because in 3 years, you should generally be, because you changed gym, maybe that's why it's taking you so long, because the new instructor, even though you're a blue belt, he doesn't know you well enough, so he's going to make you wait a little longer before he gives you the blue belt. Okay, I'm like that too. The guy could be really good, but if I don't know him, I haven't trained him for a long time, that's somebody else's blue belt. Somebody else will award him. But if he stays with me long enough and I've seen him on the mat on a regular basis, then I feel, yes, he's my student, I'm going to give him a belt. Okay, guys, with that said, just a quick, I forgot to mention, I'm releasing today live on jujiclub.com my new control freak video, side control. Okay, this is probably one of my best videos. I did a new video now. It's a new instructional live. It's live right now. You can get control freak side control. This video is all about how to control somebody once you pass their guard. Don't allow them to put you back in the guard. Once you pass their guard, that's it. We're cementing this position down. We're either holding him here, subbing him, or taking his back. Okay, so you guys check out that video. It's 1 hour long, jam-packed with details. Go to jujiclub.com. Use Control Freak 5 to get $5 off and become a control freak. Okay, guys? So, Mahmoud, that's my answer to you. You maybe have not been consistent enough. Maybe you're going once, twice a week. It's not enough, okay? You must get that blue belt, guys. It is the minimum, in my opinion, the minimum requirement. And I even recommend purple belt. But the thing is with purple belt, I always tell my students, when I give you a purple belt, you have to now make it to black. You can't, that's why it's kind of touchy, You can't make it to purple belt and stop, in my opinion. You've sacrificed too much. You've gone too far. That's an advanced belt. What's the difference between a purple belt and a black belt? Well, I'll tell you something. They're both mentally as strong. To break through the purple belt, you have to be really strong. Like, you've taken a lot of beatings. If you got the purple belt, you've taken a lot of beatings and you didn't quit. Now we need to polish you up, but the toughness there, the heart is there. Like, you can't get a purple belt. This is at my gym. If you get a purple belt, man, you got a lot of heart. You got a lot of guts. You got a lot of toughness. Like, you have a lot of, you put in a lot of time. You put in 5 hard years of training. This one's from Moise. What are your thoughts on Davis versus Barrio? What exercise should I do before joining a boxing gym? I'm 17. I walk around 126, 5'5". Can I still grow? Yeah, you can still grow. You can still grow up to age 21. Okay, there is a lot of things about growth. I mean, there's not a... And most of these say it's genetic. It has a lot to do with your... I'm not an expert in this. Of course, I would probably go visit an endocrinologist if you're really worried. Get a visit with an endocrinologist and see what he tells you. But you can grow up to the age of 21, from what I understand. But Moise, you're asking me what exercises you should do before boxing. Well, this is what I'll tell you. Get a boxing tutorial, shadow box at home every day, and join a boxing gym right away. But don't wait to get in the boxing gym. Start right away. Just shadow boxing in a room, in a small space is already a huge improvement if you do it every day, okay? Martial arts needs to be practiced every day. Use your martial arts to be your fitness. Don't practice martial arts and then go run on a treadmill for 45 minutes. You don't need to do that. Just do 45 minutes of martial arts. It's going to develop your flexibility, your strength, your power, your explosiveness. You could do almost anything with martial arts, okay? Martial arts, calisthenics, kettlebell is good, stretch bands. I mean, you have a variety of tools that you use to get in shape, okay? But martial arts should be the core. Missed my super chat, coach. Needed some button pushers. That's from Josh. Well, I'm going through all the super chats. I haven't seen it. Okay, here, this is from Rajat. Huge fan from India, coach. Wanted to learn MMA, but unfortunately there was no MMA gyms 10 years back here. Learned online, seeing YouTube videos, GSP and UFC. When are you coming to India? Rajat, excuse me. One of my dreams is to visit India. Okay, I definitely want to visit India. I don't have anything planned there yet, but I've, before the COVID fiasco, I was planning a trip to Pakistan. Shout out to my good friend Omar, who was going to bring me down to Pakistan. And I would love to fly down to India from Pakistan, do a couple of seminars, fly down to India, maybe do a couple of seminars, and then fly back home. But I really recommend you learn wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling. Great wrestlers come out of India. Okay, so maybe start yourself a jiu-jitsu club, get some instructionals, study them, lay some mats down, find some friends that are interested in doing jiu-jitsu. That's how I started jiu-jitsu, okay? And find a good wrestling coach. There's a lot of great wrestling in India. Mine's before Mahmoud. Okay, let me look that up. Rajat. I thought Mahmoud was the first one. Okay, here, I have this one here. Hi, coach. I consider myself very lucky to train at Renzo Gracie Academy in the mornings. Do you have any stories from morning classes? It has a very different vibe from afternoon class. Thanks for all you do. That's from George Voss. Yes, George Voss, I have plenty of stories. I love the morning class. John would have a 6 o'clock in the morning class and then a 1 o'clock in the morning class. And I'll tell you, man, the 6 o'clock in the morning class, I didn't know that nobody shows up. Like only the 1 o'clock class was like, oh, the MMA guys. So one time I went to the 6 o'clock in the morning class. I thought all the MMA guys were going to be there, but it wasn't. It was a lot of, guys who were going to work. So they come in at 6 and maybe they work at 9. So they have time to train, wrestle. And that's early, man. 6 o'clock is really early. So I got up, I did a whole workout and I didn't know that at 1 o'clock, all these monsters come on the mat. So I had to do like a double practice, but the 1 o'clock practice is like, it's ferocious, but I had done 2 back-to-back practices. So believe me, like I got my butt kicked, like I got destroyed. Like it was just such a hellish practice, both practices, because even those 9 to 5 guys, they were, and I was probably like a blue belt then. Those 9 to 5 guys are really, really good. Like, don't think because they're 9 to 5ers, they're not good. No. Those guys, yeah, they're going to work at 9 o'clock, but they do jiu-jitsu every day at 6 a.m. and you have to be very dedicated. And of course, they're training with John, so they know everything under the sun. They know every single trick under the sun. So you have like 2 grueling practices, but the 1 o'clock practice was like, the who's who, especially 10 years ago. It was like the who's who, not even 15 years ago, of like elite martial artists. It was incredible. Okay, hold on a second here. Josh, please put your super chat again. I don't know why I missed it. Moise, I done all these. Before Mahmoud, okay. I'm all the way on top. There's nothing before Mahmoud. Hey, coach, have you seen Henner and Huron's 32 Principles? That's from Jonah Schwartz. Yes, actually, I have. I'm a big fan of Huron and Henner's Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, so we were talking about, like, what do you need to know on the streets? That's what I love about their Jiu-Jitsu. It's really designed for the streets. They do some sport, but very little. Okay, so if you're doing jiu-jitsu because you want to be IBJJF world champion, maybe that's not the flavor you want to go with. Okay, but if you're looking to do jiu-jitsu for MMA or for combat in the streets, I'm a big believer in that. Like, I really think that their jiu-jitsu makes a lot of sense. I've trained with them myself personally, and I think that they really, obviously, they're 2 highly renowned experts in jiu-jitsu, okay? And the 32 principles, they kind of boil down like key ideas, and I'm all about that. I love to learn new techniques, and I absolutely love to learn principles and theories. I have a background in philosophy, so for me, I prefer the theories and principles. I prefer concepts and theories and principles over like details, okay? So here's what I believe. I believe that beginners should learn moves, specific moves, okay? Specific moves. And as you get to purple belt, you should start learning concepts and theories and strategies, okay? Because I really think if you take a beginner and you give him theories and strategies, it's just confusing. He doesn't even understand the particulars. So that's why I used to love training with Braulio Estima, because he used to teach us techniques, and then also he would teach us principles and theories and ideas, and he had great concepts. So you get the best of the two. So I really believe in, ultimately you'd want the best of the two. You'd want both in your training, but they become more important as you get more advanced. Principles and theories and concepts become more important as you get advanced, okay? But when you're more on the beginner side, focus more on learning how to elbow escape, butterfly sweep, guillotine, how to pass, learn the particular moves. This is where my hand goes, this is where my elbow goes, because there's nothing to theorize about if you don't have any particulars, okay? And it's funny because in philosophy we have the same argument, and the vast majority of philosophers think that you want to first do the particulars and then try to understand the universals. So it's actually quite interesting. There's a overlay. So I highly recommend you do both, but if you have to prioritize, depending on where you are, you should emphasize one over the other, okay? Okay, here we go. What else we got here? Okay, guys, we're talking about, does martial arts work on the street? What kind of martial arts works on the street? In my opinion, you got to do Muay Thai and a grappling art. Wrestling would be good. Muay Thai and wrestling would be great, but I really think that you should do some submissions, because imagine you get into a fight with a guy who just watches a bunch of UFC and he knows how to do armbar just by watching, and you get caught on the armbar. Because I know you guys might find it ridiculous, but go on YouTube, put in Jiu-Jitsu street fight, you're going to find all sorts of videos. People are fighting Jiu-Jitsu in the street, man. It's happening. I mean, before they were far and few between. Now, like, every week there's a new video of somebody using Jiu-Jitsu on the street. Like, literally, YouTube has a flow of content. So what's going to happen 2-3 years from now? Everybody knows something about Jiu-Jitsu. Josh, can you please email me at tristargymcanada@gmail.com and we'll figure it out. I'll fix it up for you. Okay, this is from Rub. Rub says, hello, coach. What is the better for a beginner to do MMA 6 times a week or spend 3 days kickboxing and 3 days grappling? I am 18 years old. I have been practicing Taekwondo for 6 years. Thanks for the video. If you've been doing Taekwondo for 6 years, I would do probably a good patch of Jiu-Jitsu. And then I would shadow box on my own. I would hit the bag on my own, because I really believe striking, you don't really need a class. Like I have this MMA class in the morning where we spar with little gloves. It's a friendly sparring. It's a touch sparring with little gloves, and there's wrestling involved. And I call it a class, but when guys show up, there's no lesson. There's no punch like this or kick like that. We're just kind of sparring each other, and I'm coaching the guys. We coach each other. I have some instructors on the mat. The more experienced students will coach the lesser experienced students. Guys will sit there and be like, okay, well, I did this choke, I did it like that. And it's more of a professional practice. Like when you go to a wrestling club where they're elite wrestlers, there's not a class. There's not like, okay, we're going to drill this move for an hour and then we're going to wrestle. It's not really done like jiu-jitsu. Okay. So I had this one guy who was a beginner. He's like, oh, I thought this was a class. No, I go, this is a class. Like if you go to Thailand and the workout is at 6, it doesn't mean the instructor is going to teach you how to punch and kick at 6 and then you guys are going to hit the bag. No. It means you wrap up. Okay, you did your run, you wrap up, you're hitting the bag, and the coach just comes up and tells you, look, do it like this. Arrange it like, okay, block like that. If you're going to elbow, do it like this. And he's just going to kind of coach you as you're working out. The bell is ringing. Work, rest. And some guys are clinching. Some guys are hitting Thai pads. Some guys are shadow boxing. Some guys are jumping ropes. Some guys are doing touch sparring. Some guys, that's how the class is. It's like you just get in there and you start training. And then the coaches on the mat, when they see you do something wrong or they saw you spar and they want to polish something up, they're going to walk up to you and they're going to be like, hey, when somebody kicks you, this is a proper counter. I want you to drill this counter. And they're going to build you from there. It's not a formal class. I personally don't like a formal class. Like imagine going to a boxing class and you've been training boxing for 10 years and the guy's gonna be like, okay, I want you guys to jab, jab, cross, jab, jab, cross. No, that's too beginner. And that doesn't take that long to learn. Like look at how the Cubans train. The Cubans just warm up. They do some technique, yeah. They do some drilling, and then they kind of play spar, work the bag, shadow boxing, slipping. Like the workout is it's a copycat workout. I see the guys who are more experienced than me, and I just kind of follow. That is the fastest way, in my opinion, to learn. That is the fastest way. And because the reason why it's the fastest way is because the way I jab might not be how you jab. Maybe you have a longer arm, maybe you're more explosive, maybe you're more oriented to following up with a hook, so you jab and hook. So the way you jab is to set up a hook, whereas me, maybe I like to jab and overhand. That's my style. Jiu-Jitsu is really like striking is very, very particular to the person. So I feel like if an instructor tells you exactly how to throw a punch, exactly how to throw a kick all the time, they can kind of put you in a mold that doesn't fit for you. That's why I always tell people striking is about level and style. It's not only about level. I know guys who've been training 10 years and another guy training 5 years, and the guy training 5 years is better. Why? His style is better. He's figured out the right style for him. Okay, so I'm a big believer in style. And that's why, like, in my instructional videos, I kind of give you like, okay, here's 20 different striking maneuvers. Try them, see which ones you like. Maybe you like 10 out of 20. But those 10 are going to serve you well for many years. Like, for instance, I do Superman punch. GSP does Superman punch. Do I use the Superman punch as much as GSP? No, not at all. He uses a lot more. Why? He has a longer reach. I'm not much of a, it's not my forte. Like, I use it. It works for me. I do it every so often to surprise my opponent, but I'm not going to do it 20 times in a row. Like George will do it a lot. Maybe 20 times is exaggerated, but you guys get what I'm saying. What about self-defense situations involving weapons? That's from Vishal. Well, you know what? I have to do this eventually. I had this idea where I'm gonna get like this taser knife. This knife where it burns you. Like literally, it's a knife. It's a plastic knife or like a rubber knife, and it tases you. And I wanted to get the guys in the gym to work with it. Like try to disarm me. I have a knife. I'm coming at you. I'm gonna tase you with this knife, and let's see if your fancy schmancy kickboxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu is gonna work on a guy with a knife. Okay, because now the knife, when it touches you, it electrocutes you, it zaps you. And I was really looking. I'm gonna be putting it up on this channel sooner or later. I just gotta get around to doing it. It's something I've always wanted to do. Like I'm fascinated with weapons training. I've never done really weapons training, very little. So I'm wondering like what's it gonna be like when I have like a taser in my hand and somebody's coming at me and he's unarmed, or vice versa. It's gonna be really interesting. I think it'll make for a very interesting experiment on this channel. So I look forward to doing it. Coach, can I do a beep test workout before BJJ class for conditioning, or is it a specific for striking sports? No, you can do absolutely. Beep test is a great way to get in shape, but I wouldn't do it necessarily before jiu-jitsu. Do your jiu-jitsu, and then after jiu-jitsu, I would do my beep test. I wouldn't do it before because I feel like it would take away a lot from my grappling training. Guys, don't forget, check out my newest instructional, Control Freak, Side Control. It's a great instructional, guys. When you get side control on somebody, if you've watched this video, if you studied it, it's going to be a wrap. You're going to put the guy, in the worst positions. You're going to tie. It's all about not letting the guy regard and exposing his back and taking his back, crushing him on the bottom, making him want to give you your back, and just absolutely being a control freak, just shutting down any possibility of escape. Coach, can you explain the history of Dutch kickboxing and what makes it different? And what other countries have specific styles in a certain martial art? And do you think it's something to do with how? That's from Mustafa. Mustafa is asking, what's the history behind Dutch style kickboxing? Well, I'll tell you something about the Dutch. Okay, they're phenomenal kickboxers. I absolutely love their style. If you look at the Thais, the Thai fighters versus Dutch style kickboxing, the Thais are untouchable in the clinch. Okay, the Thais have always beat everybody in the clinch. So in Muay Thai, you have punches, kicks, knees, elbows, and clinching. Okay, in round one of a Muay Thai fight, generally the referee will not allow you to clinch very much. Round 2, you cannot clinch very much. Round 3, you cannot clinch very much. Round 4, you can clinch as much as you want. Round 5, you can clinch as much as you want. Sometimes you see rounds 4 and 5 just be non-stop clinching. They don't even really kick and punch anymore. Sometimes, okay, because you're allowed to, the referee will not interrupt the clinching. So because the Thais are such great clinchers, whenever they fight the Dutch in Thailand, because that's the setup in Thailand, they always win rounds 4 and 5 because they've always out-clinched the Dutch. The Dutch have never got good to the level. They've never had clinching at the level of a Thai. However, in boxing, the Dutch heavily dominate. When it comes to straight punching, the Dutch, in general, on average, are definitely better than the Thais. There's no question. Okay, so the Thais had a better clinch, and the Dutch had a much better boxing style. Now, what about the kicks? The kicks in general, I would say, is the Thais. The Thais were better kickers. However, there were some Dutch that were glaringly great kickers. They were even with the Thais, just as good. Elbows most definitely goes to the Thai. So if you fought in Thailand with the Thai rules, you would see the Thais win the majority of the time. However, if you take the Thais and you put them in the Holland or a foreign country, and the rules are kick, punch, and knee, and the rules vary, okay, but oftentimes it's kick, punch, and knee, no elbows, no clinching, the Dutch they dominate. Okay, they do even better. Now, I don't want to say they dominate all the time. It's a sure win. No. Okay, if you look like at Glory rules, some Thais, because obviously Glory is bigger, they're heavier weights. The Thais are much smaller, and generally speaking, they dominate the lower weight classes. So anytime you have a higher weight classes, you're not going to see very many Thais. But the Thais in that rule set, let's say you have two guys at 125. In that rule set where there's no clinching, you could see even a top Thai lose. Why? Because that's not how they fight. They're not really great boxers per se. Now, if you look at the greatest Thai fighters of all time, they were also great boxers. That's my one critique in Thailand, is that they don't do enough boxing. And it's amazing to me, being a person that's trained in Thailand many times for many months, I'm surprised that they don't emphasize more boxing. Because why? It's there. Like, it's not that hard to learn the art of boxing. You guys you're training